Hey, this is Dom from Tech Advisor, and I'm here at Samsung's booth at CES 2020. Now, just before the show, the company actually unveiled 4 mid-range phones, which is really rare for CES from Samsung. 2, the Note 10 Lite and the S10 Lite, were total surprises. But what we got here is something a bit more traditional for the company. We have the A51 and the A71, which sit right in the sort of mid-range of Samsung's lower tier lineup, if that makes sense. Let's run down what's different between the two. We've actually done a video comparing the Note 10 Lite and the S10 Lite, and they're really similar phones for the most part. So what surprised me is that the 51 and the 71 differ quite a lot more. So they kind of pull apart in 4 main areas. The first one is super obvious: size. So the A51 is a 6.5-inch screen, the A71 is 6.7 inch. Other than that, they're pretty similar. They're both Full HD+, they're both Super AMOLED, and they both look really, really good. Like, the color quality on these is really fantastic. They look really, really bright and vibrant and lush. Both screens, really similar quality. You're basically getting the same thing. It's just that question of, do you want the slightly bigger one or the slightly smaller one? Obviously, they affects dimensions across the whole rest of the phone. Otherwise, the design is really similar. We'll see they've got very similar looking camera setups, more on that later. These are 2 very different colors, but actually the colorways across the line are similar. There's basically a white/silver, a black, a pink, and a blue. They're not identical, like the pink of the 51 is a little different to the pink of the 71, but they're really close. We'll also see there's this slight sort of panel effect on the back with sort of 4 quadrants of color. Actually, it's 6, I think. And all the texture bits, they pick up the light in different ways. This is very similar to what we saw in the A95G, which was sort of rectangular panels like that. Here it's set at this kind of angle, it's offset a bit. I think it looks really, really pretty. Not everyone agrees. I've spoken to some other people who don't like how it looks, so your mileage may vary. I think these look absolutely lovely, especially in these sort of pink and blue colors. These are gorgeous. So let's talk about the other stuff that is different. Core specs vary more than I thought they would. The A51 is running one of Samsung's own Exynos processors, the Exynos 9611. I've never actually heard of that before. I don't know what other phones that's in or if this is the first one, but I don't know how to compare that. I'm guessing it's not going to be super high power. The 71, by contrast, is using a Snapdragon 730. So that's still a mid-range Snapdragon, or like an upper mid-range Snapdragon. So I would guess the 71 will be faster, it will be more powerful. It's probably also going to be more power efficient, because that's something we've generally seen with Snapdragon versus Exynos across other phones. The other thing that's different is RAM and storage vary. The 51, you can start with 4 gig of RAM and 64 gig of storage. That's the lowest spec, which isn't great. And then goes up to 6 gig RAM, 128 gig storage. Whereas the 71 is all 128 gig storage, but you get 6 or 8 gig of RAM. So the 71, I think once you factor in the RAM difference and the storage difference and the processor difference, I have a feeling the 71 is going to prove quite a lot faster in actual day-to-day performance. That won't matter if all you want it for is email, but if you are planning to use this for any gaming or actual productivity, the 71 is going to really pull ahead, especially once you factor in the bigger screen. Battery life is also a little bit different, though not so much. You get 4,000 milliamp hours in the smaller 51, and you get 4,500 milliamp hours in the bigger 71. So 500 milliamp hour difference. Real life usage, that's basically going to be an extra hour or 2, I think, unless you do see a benefit from the extra power efficiency in the Snapdragon. Charging's different too, though. The 71 has 25 watt wired fast charging. The 51 caps out at 15 watt fast charging. So Samsung hasn't given numbers for how quickly it'll top the battery up, but again, if you're wanting to like really quickly top your battery up, the 71 will probably do it half an hour faster or something like that. So that could be a deal breaker for you if you want to be able to top your phone up on the go rather than rely on charging overnight. All right, so the last thing is camera setup, which is mostly similar, but there is a little difference, and again, the 71 pulls ahead. On the front, selfie camera. They may look different, but actually these have the exact same selfie camera specs. I'm not sure why. You may have noticed actually the notch there kind of popped up a bit, so there's clearly some variation in what size the notch appears as and when it appears in that size. Why it appears bigger on the 71 for the most part, I don't know. They're the same selfie camera. Back. Here they look identical, but they're not. So it's the flip of the front. Both quad camera setups. What you're getting beyond the main lens is a depth sensor, a macro lens, and an ultra-wide lens on each of them. Those are identical no matter which one you get, exactly the same for those 3 lenses. It's only the main lens where you're going to see a difference. On the 51, you're getting the standard 48 megapixel lens we've seen in loads of phones in 2019. Just an f2.0 48 megapixel lens. Should be really good if you want those high megapixel shots. The A71 goes one step further. This is a 64 megapixel lens, which I think makes it the first 64 megapixel lens Samsung's put in one of its own phones. It also drops down to an f1.8 aperture. So take those 2 things together, and the 71 is actually going to pull ahead a lot, both in terms of the color tone and the detail you pull out, and the just overall quality. You're going to get a lot more from the 71 for that single point and shoot lens. Though for the versatility, they're exactly the same as one another. So yeah, these are 2 phones that in spirit are very similar, design's very similar, quad camera setup very similar. But once you dig into the details, actually on a lot of metrics, almost every metric, the 71 just pulls a little bit ahead, which means I don't think we have full pricing information just yet, but unless there's a big pricing gap, or unless you really don't want the big screen, I'd really encourage anyone to make that jump up to the 71 because it is going to pull ahead in almost everything you do. Even if it's a little bit, that will add up across the course of using the phone. There's still more to come from us here at CES, so stay tuned this week. We've got a few more videos on the way, though we are nearing the end. So like and subscribe, check out everything else on the channel, check out our CES playlist for all the other things that have been announced this week so far. Thanks.